So we're going to take a look at this one here. So plurality means who got the most votes, as opposed to majority, which means getting more than 50% of the votes. All right, so let's copy that in here. All right, so there's a couple problems like this on the handout that we did the other day. And so here, what do we have going on? Let's switch to red. So right now with first choice, we have C with 14, A with 15, and B with 17. All together for a total of what, 36 votes altogether? So let's see, half of 36 is what, 18? So that means to get a majority, somebody would need 19 votes. Yeah, half plus one.
Which one was that one?
It's not on the handout.
Oh.
We did all the handout ones in class the other day. So since you two already did those, I don't want to repeat those, but these are just like the handout problems. So nobody has 19 right now. So what we do with elimination for plurality is we get rid of the person with the least first place votes. So who's out then? Yeah, so we strike B, and then what happens is the people who voted for B first, C second, and A third, we just shift their choices up. So B is out, so then we're assuming that a person who voted this way would want C as their first choice and A as their second. Okay. Yep. Yeah, so now we've eliminated B from the race. C now has 14 plus 7, which exceeds a majority, and so C is definitely the majority winner. After elimination. So if we just went by plurality choosing, then A would have won the election. But if we say, no, they really have to have a majority to win, then we do an elimination of whoever doesn't have a lot of first place votes to see how other people would have voted, and then we bump that person up. So in this case, if we have to have a majority to win and we use the elimination method, then C is the winner. Okay, so that's called plurality with elimination. All right. Okay, let's try another one. What else do we have here? Let's see, show the answer just to make sure. Computer agrees, C won that one. Okay, how about the board account is pretty good. Let's take a look at this one. And screenshot it. Still have not found a way to make these tools stay on the screen. So we're going to do a board account. Anybody remember what the board account is from the other day? No, it's not. No, it's not board. So something that's going to be useful for this. Oh, where is my other page? There it is. There you go. That's where we rank them. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. So if you forget, read the chapter, and then I summarize the whole chapter in this document right here. So it goes all the different ones. So the way the board account works is we say, okay, well, how many choices were there? And then we weight somebody's vote by a reverse ordering of the choices. So for example, in this particular problem, that means first choice is worth 3 points, second choice is worth 2 points, and third place is worth 1 point. If we had 4 candidates, first place would be worth 4 points, and so on. Okay, so it depends on how many choices you have. So if we look at just candidate A, for example, and we do his border count, we can see that over here, A got second place 11 times. Second place is worth 2 points, so that's 2 times 11 points for A. Next category, A was third choice with 14 people. So A got 1 point 13 times. 14 times, thank you. And then over here, A got first place 12 times. So that's 3 points 12 times. And so that's how you do a border count. So you compute that out. So what do we have? We have 22 and 14 and 36, which gives us 30, 40, 50, 60, 72. Okay. So what I want you to do right now with this particular data set, see what B's border count is and C's border count is. Uh-oh, can you not see what I'm doing, Pen? Oh, I forgot to share the screen. Darn it.
Last time I figured this out, and now I'm just trying to
get along again.
Remember it again because it was the first few weeks that I couldn't get any of that, and now that I got it, I can get the last few weeks. We're doing the same for B now?
Yep, do the border count for B and the border count for C. And then C. $97? I got that right? Oh gosh, I can't add today.
85 for what?
Let's try again. So let's see, we have, where did I go wrong? C should be 2 times 14. Oh, I did 3 times 12 by mistake. Oops. I can't multiply. 24. Okay, that looks better. So we got 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, 81, and 4 is 85. Yep, nice job. All right, so it looks like C is the border count winner. Okay. And again, there's different ways to do this, and all the different methods aren't necessarily going to agree. Okay, so it's up for any group to decide how they're going to go about using a preference ballot to elect the winner, whatever that may be. Back to that previous example for a moment. Let's see, where is it? Here. So here, again, we were doing an elimination method where B had the least first place votes, so we wiped out B from the ballot, shifted up these voters' choices, and that gave C a majority win there. Okay, and we only do that if a plurality isn't good enough to win. Okay, where we want a majority instead of just a plurality. So if we were just doing plurality, A would have won there, but C is the majority winner. And so again, any group that's doing this has to decide what are our voting rules, and the voting rules will dictate the outcome. All right, let's try another one. How about, let's see, that was border count. That's another border count. Uh-oh, where did my list of choices go? Interesting, I lost them. Okay, back here. Let's try another one. Pairwise comparison, that's a good one to look at. New page. And this one says do pairwise comparison with Copeland's method. And my recollection of Copeland's method is that ties are worth 1/2 each. So let's double check that. Yep, tie is worth 1/2 point with Copeland's method. With the ordinary pairwise comparison, which was earlier in the book somewhere, so I don't even have it here. Do I? Nope. You don't count ties. Okay, so what we do is we analyze every pair of people that could have been up against each other. So first we'll take a look at A versus B. And I had done it in a table earlier, so I can show the table method in a minute too. It's not much different. All right, so with A versus B, let's see. A wins 5 here, B wins 14 there, A won 13 there. So just A versus B, A wins 5 and 13 versus 14. So A versus B, B is the winner. Oh, I can't count, right. A is the winner. Thank you. Glad you're paying attention. All right, so then we compare. So we have to do all pairwise comparisons. So next we would say, okay, let's try A versus C. What happens? A versus C, we got A wins here, A wins there, C wins there. So it's what, 19 versus 13. So A is the winner there. And then we look at B versus C. And usually I scribble all over this. And so sometimes I make a mess of it. So let's see. Where am I? B versus C. So B gets 5 there, B gets 14 there, but C gets 13 there. So here B gets 5 and 14 or 19 versus C's 13. So B wins that one. Okay. So with Copeland's pairwise comparison method, we get A, every win is worth a point in a pairwise comparison. So A ends up with 2 points, B ends up with 1 point, and C ends up with 0 points. So A is Copeland's winner for that election. Okay, so if we just did one-on-one elections with each one, A would come out ahead. Okay. Now notice what would happen if we did plurality. B would win in a plurality, right? So again, these methods, there's different methods people have come up with for dealing with these preference ballots, and they don't all agree. So again, somebody has to decide based on their beliefs what is most fair. Okay, and they all have their pros and their cons. So that's Copeland's method. All right, let's try another one. Does this one give us any more choices? Yeah. What's this one? That gives us the Condorcet candidate. Okay, Condorcet. What is Condorcet? Condorcet says 1-to-1. Oh, there it is. That's the other one I was looking for. You do 1-to-1 comparisons to see who wins. Now here we're only looking for winners, so ties don't count. So it's basically just like Copeland's method, except so with Copeland's method, if a tie came up, they each get 1/2 point. With Condorcet's method, if a tie comes up, it doesn't count. You either win or you didn't win. Yeah, and not winning could be a tie or a loss. Okay, so that's pretty similar to what we just did, so we don't need to do that again. What else do we have? Okay. Yeah, let's do this one together. Okay. Right, so let's blow it up a little bit more. All right, so 4 friends are trying to decide what kind of cake to order for a party. Cheesecake, chocolate, or yellow. Everyone was asked to vote for their favorite, and the winner under the unknown voting method was chocolate. Okay, so we don't know what the method was. Interesting. Upon hearing the results, 2 people who had voted for yellow cake wanted to change their votes to move chocolate to the top of their preference lists. the winner was recalculated and cheesecake was the winner. Okay, which fairness criteria has been violated? Okay, so let's take a look at fairness criteria. So independence of irrelevant alternatives. So if something completely lost and we remove them from the election, it shouldn't change the results. Okay, so that's the independence of alternatives criteria. Monotonicity, I've forgotten that one. Let's see, what does monotonicity say? If a voter changes their votes to increase the preference for a candidate, it should not harm the candidate's chance of winning. That sounds like what we have going on here. Okay, so monotonic means stay the same. So here we're saying, well, if it doesn't change the same, it shouldn't change things either. Okay, so they're trying to increase preference for a different candidate. Let's see, where this screen go? The Condorcet criterion. Let's see, what is that one? Okay, if there is a choice that is preferred in every one-to-one comparison, that choice should be the winner. And so we call that the Condorcet winner. So again, comparing one-to-one comparison should dictate the winner. Let's see, where'd you go again? Okay, there we go. And then the majority criterion means one of them should have the majority of the votes for that. So which one does it look like we violated here based on their definitions? It looks to me like the monotonicity, because they wanted to change their vote to chocolate to increase the chance of a chocolate winning.
What does that word?
Monotonicity means stays the same, doesn't change. So the monotonicity criteria says if voters change their votes to increase the preference for a candidate, that should not harm the candidate's chance of winning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have problems with that one.
Yeah. And cheesecake. So that did change. Okay. So I guess that would be the independence of irrelevant alternatives criterion. All right, let's give it a try. Ooh, monotonicity. That was my first thought on that one. Okay. So if you get one of those wrong, you can message, this one says message owner, but when you say it, it'll say message the instructor. Message me with your argument as to why you think it's the other one. Because these are debatable. Yeah. The criterion?
Yeah. Are they in the voting theory?
Yeah, they're in the voting theory guide, and there's a summary sheet that I put them on. Does anybody want a copy of the summary sheet? Yeah. So all I did is copy and paste out of there the definitions and lift the examples off. Okay, so I will print a bunch of those right now. And then this is available on the website if you haven't gotten a copy of it already.
Okay.
So let's print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies. And print. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to do this, and it's nice to have a cheat sheet like this to look at to help sort it out. The difference between this and the book is these are the same definitions in the book. I just removed all the examples and discussion. So please just don't read this. Make sure you read the book stuff too, because there's a lot of good discussion there too. All right, so those are going to come out on the printer in just a moment.
I was wondering if you could, like, I know you already went over it, but can you explain to me what you just did in the last problem? Like what you did briefly.
In terms of the one-to-one comparisons again? Yeah, let's do one from the handout, which will help the other 3 people here. So let me bring up my handout.
I was trying to listen to you what you did, but I was just
okay, no problem.
No, I was, you know, I just heard him speaking in Scottish.
This is a weird, very strange day. All right, so let's see, voting and voting worksheet. Okay, so let's see. So you wanted to see where'd it go? I lost my notes. There they are. Okay, so this is Copeland's method. All right. I worked hard to lose my Rhode Island accent. I need to work on bringing it back. Let's see, 6, instant runoff, Condorcet. Okay, here's Copeland's method here. So Copeland's method should be like the 4th page in, I think.
Gary, are you Italian?
What? No, Rhode Island has a very high Italian population, Italian immigrant population, excuse me, but I am not, no. But I do like cooking Italian food because I had lots of Italian friends growing up. So I make some awesome Italian food. Yeah, that was a bummer when Pendleton opened that Italian restaurant for a little while. We went once and I was like, oh, I cook way better than this. It was on Main Street. I don't remember the name of it. Giorgio's, maybe?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. And it was good, but I cook better. Why would I spend money somewhere that I can make better food?
That's the man when he says he cooks better. Without laughing.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's do this. So pairwise comparison. So pen, there we go. And let's go with blue. So what we want to do is we want to do every possible comparison of 2 candidates at a time. So I always start with A versus B. And that's what my table's here to help me summarize, because here is the cell for A versus B's result right there. Okay, I really don't need the bottom half of this table. The top half has everything I need.
The red part down.
Yeah, so I have 3, 2, 1 comparisons I have to do for 4 people. All right, so A versus B, we just ignore everybody else. So with A versus B, let's see, the way I usually draw it is underneath A, I'll list what A got. So let's see, here A wins 19. So I'll make a note of 19. With 3 candidates, I can kind of look at it and do it. With 4, it's too many and I got to write stuff down. Let's see, A versus B, B wins 15 there.
Sorry, what did A win?
Do you have the sheet still? The sheet should be, I have another copy here too. So you don't have to squint. Where'd it go? This one right here. I'm pretty sure we're doing that one.
I scribbled all over mine.
Yeah, so, yeah, and you got to do some scribbling and writing. Okay, so let's see. Next column, B wins 8 votes. And the last column, B wins 12 votes. Okay, so without even adding, I can pretty clearly see B won that. Okay, so that means I give B 1 point for winning versus A. And that's what I have this other summary table here for. And then I just keep doing that. So next I would do A versus C to get the result of this next cell. So let's see, A wins 19, A wins 15, C wins 8, and C wins 12. And I can pretty clearly see without adding that A is the winner there. Oops, I lied the way I used the table above. The table above, I write who won. Oops. So that shouldn't be a 1 right there. That should be a B. A versus C, A is the winner. All right, and then we just keep doing this for every possible pair. So next would be A versus D. So the table helps me keep track so I don't miss any pairwise comparisons. So A versus A, B, C, D is next. And A wins that 19 all the time.
So, oh, you're taking first choice? Is that what you're doing?
Whoever's above the other one. So here, A is above D in column 1. In column 2, D is above A. So D won those 15 votes compared to A. In the third column, A beats D.
Okay.
See it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So according to the third column, those 8 votes go to A. So we're just making believe the other candidates don't exist. What happens with A versus D? And last one, D gets those 12. All right, this one's a little tighter. I got to do that addition. What do we have? 17 versus 17. We got a tie, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I write What? Oh, yeah, that I knew that. 27. Thank you. It's still a tie, though, right? All right. So when it's a tie, I put both of them down here. AD. That's a tie. Okay. So next, I'm done with comparing A. Now I start comparing B. So BC is next.
Okay. I see.
All right. So the big thing about this is an elimination. Now, if we have more candidates and more people to count, we have the spreadsheet do this for us. It's a little trickier to have a spreadsheet do it, but you can make a spreadsheet do this for you. Let's see. So B versus C. Where am I? C is the winner of 19. And then B takes the next 15. B takes the next 8. And C takes the next 12. So what do we have there? We have 31 versus, I get C wins that one. Right, because I have C with 31 and B with 23.
We're adding, right?
Add up what they got each time, yeah. So 15 and 8 versus 19 and 12.
Yeah, C wins.
Okay, so C is the winner there. And then we move on. So we just keep doing this until we're done. So now we have B versus D. Okay, we got AJ claims D wins, so BD. So let's see. D is 19. D is 15. 8. And yeah, D kicked butt on that one. Yeah.
Wins.
Yeah.
And now C versus D?
And then C versus D, yeah.
Oh, it was like the statements.
Fun.
All right.
No.
The statements,
Fun, no.
inverse, converse.
Yes.
That was like,
All right, so let's see. C versus D. C takes 19. D takes 15. C takes 8. And C takes 12.
So C wins.
So C clearly takes that one. Okay, so then we look at their point totals here. So A got a point here and a half a point there. So I have A at 1.5. B only got 1 point. C has 2 points.
Wait.
So we look, how many times do we see them in here? So I see A here, but A split that one as a tie, so that's 1.5. B occurs only once here, so they got 1 point. C occurs twice by itself, and D got a 1.5. So according to Copeland's method here, C is Copeland's winner.
C is winner. Woohoo! I got it now. I don't feel stupid.
Yeah, it just takes a little try to get used to them. And, you know, I only do these about once a year, so I have to look them up each time and remind myself how to do them. And there's the rules out there are fascinating that countries have come up with. Like, try reading Canada's rules for electing parliamentary members. Great Britain's is equally complicated. It takes a few times of reading the rules and then trying it on some ballots before you figure it out. They're not in this chapter. There's another voting chapter in our book that we're skipping. It's complicated enough that it didn't even end up in that chapter. It makes our electoral college look stupidly easy. Okay. So let's see. If you're curious, since I brought it up, let's see. If you look up, say, preference ballots, which is what we're doing right now, preference ballots, you'll likely be taken to, let's see, did I type that right? No. There's a good Wikipedia page. I remember reading somewhere. Where is it? Oh, I thought it came up first shot last time I looked this up. Oh yeah, ranked voting systems is another way to call a preference ballot. And in here, they have a method called single transferable vote, which we didn't cover. And the single transferable vote has just a brief statement of it, and you read that statement and it's like, oh yeah, I think I get that. But then you go and look at the rules some countries have when you go to the detailed area, and it's like, ooh, that is a little bit tricky. But they list all the different countries that use it. And some countries even use it, like Cambridge, Massachusetts uses it in a city election. But they give some examples of how it works. And then they give you an example with fruit here. So I don't know, I'm tempted to write another chapter for this book that does this, because there are a fair amount of countries in the world that do a method similar to this one right here, which is kind of neat. But I think it would take us about a week to get used to it. So it would be like a whole chapter all to itself. So if you think voting stuff is cool and the last election you found fascinating, then there's some really cool stuff here. But so instead of going out and watching Doctor Strange this weekend, maybe you could kick back with this. I did see Doctor Strange last night, and I'm not going to be a spoiler. It was good, but not really good.
Can you imagine? Okay, I'm just saying hypothetically.
It was adequate.
You were, like, on acid, or you just, like,
They did
high as balls, and you
Shh,
just watched it.
watch the language, please.
Just, like,
It'd be trippy.
Yeah, I do think he's a good actor, and they didn't take advantage of that enough.
Oh,
They had a
yeah.
good start to it, but then they kind of lost the character development, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could have done. I feel like
So
that
too
was
much
like
wham
the
bang
attitude.
fighting and not enough character stuff. Anyway, okay, let's get back to this. I enjoyed watching it
Can you
anyway.
see his face?
Okay, let's shrink this down. All right, so let's see. Condorcet, fairness criteria, we did that one. Approval rating is pretty straightforward. It's a lot like the ranking, except we don't rank. Really. So let's take a look at this one, since I haven't gone over an example of this in class yet. So let me steal that one. Oh, you can make a computer system that does it in a minute. Yeah, so all you do is plug in the ballots and a computer program runs through this, because we have rules we follow to do it ourselves, right? So any rules you can write for a human to follow, a computer can do. Yeah, so it doesn't matter really how complicated the rules are. We can always make a computer do what we can do. So does this make voting more complicated? The answer is, at first glance, yes, but ultimately it does not. What it does give us is more information. And so we'll talk about the more information when we get to our electoral college, about why this information would have been nice to have, looking at past presidential elections, for example. Okay, let's see, new page, copy. Come on. There we go. And screen clipping, let's do this here. Okay.
Is a Condorcet candidate different than I mean, I think we just did it, but is it different than the Copelands, or is it similar?
They're similar. Yeah, so if we're just looking Condorcet straight, we don't look at ties, we're only concerned about wins. With Copeland, a tie gets a half. That's the only change. Okay, so with approval rating, we just say, hey, who would you like? And we don't worry about ranking at all. And so 28 people said, well, so this is for speakers at some event. Uh-oh, my pen, there it goes. In the first column, come on, there we go. 28 people said, well, I would like this person or that person. And they didn't rank them first or second. So what that means is when we look across, for example, at Billie Jean King, Billie Jean King got 28 votes to be there. They got another 24 from some people, and they got another 28. Okay, so we just look at how many times did they get voted for. We don't worry about ranking. No, this is approval voting. Yep. So you just like, who would you approve to be president? And you could just check off. Well, I wouldn't mind Hillary Clinton, I wouldn't mind Donald Trump, and I wouldn't mind Jill Stein. And you could just say all three. And then at the end, you just count up who got the most approvals. And you don't worry about weighting them. So a preference ballot is like approval rating, but you get to rank them too. And the ranks can then be used for different reasons. Okay. And so then we add those up, right? So we get 20, 40, 60, 70, 80, I think. Okay, so then we do another one. So let's see. Peekaboo Street, PS, will do. That got 28 votes and 27 votes and another 27 votes. So it looks like here we get 20, 40, 60, 75, and 7 is what, 82? And then Susie Orman got 28 and 27 and 28, which is one more than the person above, which I believe is 83. And then Ellie or Eli Weasel or Weisel gets 28 and 24 and 27, which I think is 79 on a good day. So according to the approval ballots, we get Susie Orman as the winner with 83 total approval votes.
Okay, don't switch that yet.
I will not. Give you a second to write that down.
Like, writing notes helps me a lot.
Yeah, and yes, it's a good idea. I highly recommend notes. So can I move those guys down? Oh, I missed one part. So of all the methods we have so far, that's besides plurality, that's pretty much the easiest one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Mr. Parker, in
1 moment, Fen.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so when people do polls like that, they do a lot of different things. So sometimes they would do an approval ballot like this to get people's feedback. Other times they do one-to-one comparisons. Like there were some studies way back when it was Bernie versus Clinton for the Democratic nomination that people were saying, well, we've done research that shows if Bernie is the nominee, he will do better than this candidate or this candidate from the Republicans. Yeah, so that's an interesting point. And so a lot of times with polling, they'll use some of these voting methods to design polls to get information to try and predict what could happen in different ways. Because the problem with the way we do elections is we say you just get to pick one person. So we don't get the other information people are thinking. Like I would rather vote for Jill Stein, but I'm not going to because I'm afraid not enough other people will. And so I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton because I'd rather not have Donald Trump be president. Right, so weird things can happen. Can you avoid all the weirdness with different ways of doing it? The answer is no. There's always going to be weirdness. Okay, let's see. Fen had a question. What's up, Fen?
Yeah, in the majority method, if you get one person has 50%, and then do we have to continue eliminate and then get more than 50%?
No, well, they have to have more than 50%. So exactly 50% is not sufficient. It has to be above 50%. So if somebody, if on the first shot somebody got 51%, no elimination is necessary.
If 50, we have to do and continue to do the elimination.
If it's exactly 50%, we have to do an elimination. Yes.
I see.
Yep. Because majority means higher than 50%.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk like 10 or 15 minutes on our election system, and then I'm going to free people to do computer work. So let's talk about some other things. So let's see, somewhere I have a spreadsheet. Which one do I want? I want a couple of these. So let's see, election results. And we'll blow this up just a wee bit, maybe one more time. All right, so here is some data that I found on the internet that claimed to be 99% of the reporting across the country. And on the, I should have listed the website. Who was this? Oh, this was Google's website, yeah. So Google had this on their website, and I have links here to it. I can share this out to everybody after this. Their website reported that Donald Trump had 47% of the popular vote, Hillary Clinton had 48%, Gary Johnson 3%, Jill Stein about 1%, and other candidates combined had about 7%. 0.7%. How many other candidates were there? A lot. If you look at the list, I was shocked at how many different other candidates there were. And they weren't listed in every state, which is interesting. To get on the ballot, yeah. So some states restrict people from getting on the ballot, other states don't. So they also listed the actual votes that they had found that each of these candidates got. So I just had the spreadsheet add those up, and based on that, give the percentages. So just slightly more accurate versions of those percentages based on 99% reporting of states about who voted. So we're missing 1% of the data here, roughly. We get 47.5% for, or 47.25% roughly for Trump, 47.8% for Clinton. However, even though Clinton got the popular vote by a narrow margin, but still enough of a margin that it's likely, if we just went on popular vote, it would be hard to contest, although it is contestable. She did win the popular vote, but Trump won the election because of the way our electoral college works. So we're going to take a look at what our electoral college does in just a moment. So just another note. So that means 95% of the votes that we're aware of were either cast for a Democrat or a Republican. Okay, and some years it's higher than that, some years it's lower. So my recollection is in the 2012 election, I think it was more like 98% of the vote was for Democrat or Republican. But the election before that, it was like 80%. Oh no, wait a second, it was the 1992 election? Let's see, I wrote it in my, no, it was Bush, was it Al Gore and Bush? Okay, I gotta look it up, I can't remember. It was Clinton and Bush, yeah, it was Clinton and Bush. So yeah, it was before that one, Clinton and Bush, and in 1992, the wild card character was a guy named Ross Perot. And he actually took about 19% of the vote as an independent candidate. And there was evidence that he would have gotten more, except that partway through the election, he quit. He said, forget this, I'm out. And then a week later, he said, nah, never mind, I'm back in. Yeah. So this was a pretty rare event when a candidate that wasn't a Republican or a Democrat took such a huge percent of the vote. Okay. And so there was a lot of complaint at the time among the Republicans because their candidate lost, that Ross Perot stole the election from George W. Bush. Okay. Now there have been similar complaints now that third-party candidates stole the election from Hillary Clinton. However, that may not be true. And there have been a couple of articles that came out about this election that it's probably not true. Now, we still have to collect more data before we can say that for sure. But a lot of time has elapsed between now and the 1992 elections, and people have studied it very extensively. And what they discovered through polling soon after the election is that the 19%, the 20 million people that voted for Ross Perot, about half of them would have voted for Bill Clinton if Ross Perot wasn't in the race, and about half of them would have voted for George W. Bush, which would not have changed the results of the election. Okay, so chances are third-party candidates' participation in the election probably didn't change Hillary Clinton's chance of winning. Okay, there's other things that happen, and from what I read so far, it's likely that the Democratic Party did not do a good enough job getting Democrats out to vote. That there were a significant number of people who voted for Barack Obama that just chose not to vote this time.
Is it like?
So Forbes magazine, which is a pretty good magazine, has some articles where they collected some data on this. Okay, so let's take a look at some. Go on. What's up?
Is it wrong of me to not understand any of that, of what you guys are saying?
About the voting?
About voting and yeah, in general.
No,
When
I
they
can.
were speaking during the elections, and my sister had, I don't know what freaking channel it was, CNN. I don't know, some stupid channel. They were talking, and I was just like, I got lost after like.
I don't understand.
And then an entire, they had the map and they were like, blah, 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 calculate. And I'm like, I'm like, I think I'm failing math at this point, so I really don't know what they're saying.
I'm gonna switch the speakers.
And I just feel like I'm losing so much. I'm out of touch out of
So
this whole thing.
I personally, the news goes by too fast for me to keep up with what people are saying. So half of my information during the voting, after the voting, before the voting, has come from reading articles online, because then I can take time to look at it. Okay. But the point here is, if we look at the data here, when Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Ross Perot were going against each other, ultimately the vote came out where Bill Clinton got a plurality of 43%. Not a majority, do not require a majority. Now that was the popular vote. The electoral vote, he got, that word's different. So the electoral vote works out so they do get a majority. Okay.
Was there ever a president that was from an independent party?
Probably early on, and then the parties have kind of shifted and changed. So it used to be a long, long time ago that Democrats were much more conservative and Republicans were much more liberal. And somewhere in like the 1800s that flipped.
It was the NCII, and they eventually split up. That's what
So in years to come, will our parties likely change? Yeah, they likely will, because they have changed the course of our country. But it has mostly been a two-party system from the beginning, although the parties have shifted positions over time. And then they need to split it too.
Guess it was like Federalist and Democrat.
Yeah, for the Federalists were early, yeah.
Yeah, and then they switched like Democrats.
And early on in when we were a young country, that the Federalists were a very interesting group of people. And if you're ever into history and politics, there's a group of papers called Federalist Papers that are awesome to read. I think this stuff is important. Mostly I don't, but the Federalist Papers did blow me away.
I thought they were strong papers to work
Because
the country.
Because I feel like back then they were actually, rational about what they were very clear about what the party signified.
Well, so that gets to it.
Does that make sense?
This is going to give you a chance to think about this and do some research when we get into our writing project, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. So here, let's say Ross Perot got exactly 20%. The research shows that if he were not in the race, then Bill Clinton would have gotten half of that, and George W. Bush would have gotten half of that. And so Bill Clinton would have ended up with a majority of 53%, and George W. Bush would have been around 47%. Okay, so it wasn't just Republicans going for the independent Ross Perot. There's a lot of different people, Republican views and Democratic views. And is it more complicated than that? Yeah, it is more complicated than that. But the data has been summarized in a pretty good way to cover that. As far as the current election, the research so far, and it made this, we're still collecting information, trying to sort through it. So far, people believe that the bigger problem wasn't that other candidates took votes away from Clinton. It was that not enough Democrats got out to vote. They chose not to vote instead. Yeah, so Hillary Clinton wasn't appealing enough for them to say, I'm going to go vote for her. And so I've got a couple of files I'll share with you guys to think about this, because this relates to the writing project that we did this week.
My sister explained that to me. She said that, like, let's give you an example. North Dakota was, what, Trump?
North Dakota went Trump.
Yeah, so, most likely, but my parents are Democrats, so, she said to me, I'm like, so what is the whole deal? I mean, like, I thought half the nation would vote for Hillary, like, what's going on? Why is it all red? And she's like, well,
Yeah, so that's what we're
people
gonna get
can
to
vote
next, the electoral
all
college.
the people can vote all blue if they want, like, they can all go for Hillary, but it's actually the governor, or not the governor, the
Electoral college.
the electoral
So we'll get to that in just a
decides
moment.
it.
So some other data. We talked a little while ago, I think it was in the describing data chapter, about eligible voters, trying to get pinpoint, like, how many eligible voters are there in this country? Okay. And it turns out not only eligible voters, whether someone's eligible, but whether they actually can vote. Because just because they're eligible doesn't mean they actually can vote. So, for example, if you look at some preliminary data for this year, it's believed that, let's see, okay, of the voting age population, there were like 250 million Americans out of, what do I think, we're at like 320 million right now, maybe our population's around there, that are voting age population. Just because you're voting age doesn't mean you're eligible to vote. So only about 231,000 million are actually eligible to vote. And when they do comparisons about percent of people that voted, sometimes those percentages are related to the voting eligible population, and sometimes they're related to the voting age population. So you gotta be careful when you look up those percentages. So I did some research, and I found that in the 2012 election, the previous election, almost 55% of the voting age population actually voted. So a little over half the people that are the age to vote actually did. In this election, calculations are coming out to be more about 53, 54%. So less of a percent of the people that could vote did vote this year compared to previous year. Is that further evidence that people didn't vote for Hillary? Sort of, kind of. We're not just saying that's Democrats, that's all possible voters. So not as many people turned out to vote this presidential election cycle than the previous presidential election cycle. Yeah. Shrunk a little bit. Yeah, I'm curious to see the data as to, percent Republican voter, percent Democratic voter. I haven't seen that yet. Yeah. It's dropping. Okay, so next thing to look at is what is the Electoral College. So the Electoral College means that each state has a certain number of electors that get to vote for president, in addition to us, normal people, voting for president. You get as many electors as you have representatives and senators. So for example, if we look down to Oregon, over here, Oregon has 5 representatives and 2 senators, so altogether that gives us 7 electoral votes. Now, who gets to be the electors? Well, each party gets to pick their electors. And most states, it's a winner-take-all. And usually the electors go with what the popular vote is. So, for example, in Oregon, the popular vote was quite a bit in favor of Clinton versus Trump, and so that means the Democrats got to pick the electors, and so all of those electors voted for Clinton. Versus in Ohio, they have a higher population, so they have 18 electors to put out there, and the popular vote went for Trump, and the rules in Ohio say that means the Republicans get to pick the electors. And do you think a Republican chosen elector is going to vote for somebody other than Trump? The answer is no. Can they? It turns out they can, but the party then would try to sue them. They would try to give them fines, try to kick them out, and there has never been, in the history of elections that I know of, an elector that went against the party, or that was sued by the party because they went against it. Now, some states, it's not a winner-take-all. It's a proportional give-out. So, for example, notice I colored these things red and blue. So if I put a C there for Clinton, it gets colored red. If I replace the C with a T, it'll get colored pink or red. Let's put it back to the C. So that means if it's blue, that means blue got all 29. If it's red, that means red got all 15. Not all states have a winner-take-all policy, and that's changed over time. I thought Nebraska did not have a winner-take-all policy, so I have a question mark there, and that the votes are supposed to be dished out proportionally based on the popular vote. But that didn't happen in the data I saw, so I need to research that. I'm confused about that. Maine does have a proportional give-out. So although, I'm trying to remember, I think, Clinton got more of the popular vote than Trump. So of the 4 electoral votes Maine has, Clinton got 3 of them and Trump got 1 because of the way the popular vote went. And then something weird happened in Michigan that I haven't figured out yet. I have to do some research on that. But most states is a winner-take-all. And so a lot of people think that's unfair because sometimes a president gets elected by the electors but didn't win the popular vote, which happened this time.
It's like John Adams was.
And so every time that happens, a whole bunch of people stand up and say, hey, something's wrong with this picture. Right? The will of the people is not being executed. And so a movement is made to say, should we revise the Electoral College? Should we get rid of it? And so there's lots of news articles going on around this right now. So this is a very timely thing for us to do. So if we take a look at your writing assignment for this week, that's just what this is about. And again, I will share on our website those files because you might find some information that's useful. There's a law in political science called Duverger's rule, a law that basically says it looks like countries that have a two-party system, countries that have a certain voting system like we have tend to end up with a two-party system. Third parties get marginalized in a voting system like we have. Whereas other countries that have a more robust voting system, like maybe with the preference ballot, or maybe with the voting like Canada and Great Britain do, you end up with more diversity in the political parties. It doesn't always work that way, but more often than not, that kind of happens. So you might want to take a little bit about Duverger's law here. And there's a poll related to that a lot of Americans think, yeah, we need to have a third party that's more relevant. But our voting system kind of makes that fall apart. And so there's an interesting article here that I want you all to read. And the article is in 2 parts. The first part is just a bulleted summary of his points. And then underneath, he goes into more detail about it. And then he has some other articles here which are totally optional. But it's all about political science. So I would recommend read the bullets first. You might want to do some other research based on looking up what is Duverger's rule again and checking out that poll. and then answer some of the questions that are posed here about an alternative voting system. And think about the stuff that we went over in terms of approval voting, preference ballots, and the different ways to deal with a preference ballot. Now, the interesting thing about a preference ballot is if we did have preference ballots, it would give us a lot more information that the electors could look at and say, well, they could weight things differently. So when we look at, for example, one-to-one comparisons, or we take a look at the ranked voting, that would just give us more information to look at. Because right now, we can't say people that voted for Jill Stein, what was their second choice? Was it Trump or was it Clinton? We don't know that. A lot of people try to assume that, hey, if you voted for Jill Stein, that means if she wasn't there, we would have voted for Clinton. We do not know that. So maybe a preference ballot would be a good idea. Maybe just picking options, not having to rank it, that would be good. So this guy just has some ideas about what's wrong with the system and some ways to fix it. And is he very biased? Absolutely. You read it and decide which way he's biased. But everybody has strong opinions. Everybody has biases.
Sorry.
So you'll need to take a look at that. So I went a few minutes farther than I wanted to, so I'm going to shut up at the moment. And again, I just gave you kind of a brief outline about the electoral system. I'll post some more links related to it on our main page for voting. What I'd like to do now is just let you guys break over to the computer, work on homework, work on a quiz, or work on the writing assignment right now. Those of you who missed classes earlier this week, I'm sure you probably have lots of questions for me, so I'm whipping out some homework so you can ask me some questions. Okay, so I'll let you guys go into the computer lab, and then I'm going to see if Ben has any questions. I'll join you